All right. So I think we are live. I think we're live. Aha, we are live. I see us. Okay, so hello, everyone, in an official capacity. I am so excited to have everyone together to do a little bit of a behind the scenes or behind the greens of the
Oh, I
statue.
like that. I like
Yeah,
that.
I thought it was very punny. Um, to discuss a little bit about what life is like in the best office on earth. But I know that a lot of the people who are going to be watching this might know one of us, or two of us, or none of us. So I would like to go around the virtual room, saving Jimmy for last so that he can figure out what's going on with his doorbell. And introduce to the lovely public. Allison, you want to start?
Sure. Hi, my name is Alison Roseman. I've been a tour guide for a few years now, focusing mostly on Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island, Lower Manhattan World Trade Center, Greenwich Village. I actually grew up in California. It's like Heartland, there where all of our food is grown, but moved to New York when I was 17, and I just love this city. So, yeah.
Really? And Jimmy, you are back, and you are right below Allison on my screen. So you want to go next?
I missed it. Am I supposed
Tell
to
us about yourself.
Yeah. Well, I'm currently, and I was born and raised here in Brooklyn, New York, and I've been a tour guide in the city now for going on 14 years, and also an open mic host and a comedian around the city as well.
Nice. And a follow-up question. Remind us when you got your license to tour guide in New York City.
I got my license to tour guide in New York while I was still in high school, right before, and I had,
Oh, gee.
right around graduation, I began touring.
Jimmy, I don't recognize you without your friend, that lovely little friend, the companion you bring with you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Things are amiss, and let me be right back and see if I can find my mascot.
Okay. So for anyone watching who doesn't know Jimmy yet, you're about to meet the Chicken Man when he gets back. But Eddie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm waiting for the chicken, though. I'm Eddie Schneller. I've been a guide for 10 years. I've been on the road since 1997. I also did a statue, Ellis, Lower Manhattan. I love Lower Manhattan. And I do ghost tours. And I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, and
thanks for the invite, Sarah.
Of course. And anyone who found us through the Facebook page that I started, the Facebook event page, you'll notice that we've tagged Tours with Charlie's Dad is the correct name, or Travels with Charlie's Dad?
Yeah, that's my company, actually. Yeah. Travels with Charlie's Dad. Charlie is my firstborn son, and it's a take on John Steinbeck's Travels with Charlie.
I'm very into it.
That's awesome.
Okay. Now we're going to pivot back to Jimmy for a sec to meet the chicken. This is very important.
Yes, this is Reggie the chicken. Reggie the chicken is well known in these parts, actually. It's toured extensively.
The chicken handling quarantine.
The chicken is not handling how many eggs I've eaten in quarantine.
That's fair.
It's been a serious issue for the chicken. So, but I'm following the doctor's advice. Eat a lot of it.
That's good. Are you having chicken withdrawals?
I am having chicken withdrawals. I'm having chicken, and I'm having Statue of Liberty withdrawals as well.
And I'm betting that the guys at Statue Cruises are having chicken withdrawals too. Honestly.
It's everybody needs a little bit of the bird in their life, you know.
Yeah.
I know I'm having chicken withdrawals seeing you out there at the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jen, why don't you tell the crowd a little bit about yourself?
Hey guys, I work predominantly as an actor in family movies. And a couple years ago, I was introduced to the wonderful world of tour guiding and fell in love with the big giant green lady that we so know as the Statue of Liberty. and got to become friends with everyone here and been able to meet beautiful guests like yourself and share all about Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island.
Yeah. Also, I just looked at the Facebook page and I want to give a quick shout out to Ebeth, who is watching right now.
Ebeth!
Hi, Ebeth. We love you so much. And I promise you, I am going to be showing off the pictures that you sent me from Jersey, Ebeth. I swear to you, it's happening. But yeah, so fantastic. I am so glad everyone's here. And for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Sarah. I'm a tour guide. You can watch my virtual statue expose extravaganza fun party times in the archive of live videos that we've been putting out for this. I tour basically everywhere. I've been a New Yorker my whole life by some people's standards, probably not by Jimmy's because I was born in the suburbs, but it's close.
You
Yeah,
can see it.
yeah, nobody needs to know. My first virtual tour in this slate of tours actually featured a site in my hometown that used to be within one of the counties that became New York City before it was. Anyway, now that we've got the introductions out of the way, I want to dig into questions, and anyone who's viewing online, feel free to drop questions to us. I'll be keeping track and we'll answer as many as we can, but I got a couple on the slate that I think a lot of people are excited about. The first being, friends, what is your favorite part of the tour to give for the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island?
I think it's hard to answer that question because there's so many favorite parts.
That is fair. Does anybody have a favorite, or is it a we love the experience of all of it together kind of thing?
I think I love being able to go up on the pedestal and being able to be out front and take a look at how beautiful the Statue of Liberty is, and then being able to share the beautiful sonnet by Emma Lazarus and allowing people to be able to experience this glorious gift that France gave to us and how that relates to their hearts. I think that might be one of my favorites.
I like that one.
Let's see.
I would have to say, oh, sorry, Alice.
Go, Jimmy.
I don't want to cut you off.
Nope.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
That it's always been a truly special thing to be able to bring people to the Statue of Liberty, especially people who have struggled for a long time in their life, to have the ability to live freely and to be able to share in that experience and to be able to help to, give them something special that maybe they've dreamt about, since they were children, is always something that you can wake up and go to work and do. That is really special, a special thing.
It's so neat to me, like on that, it's like when people get on the boat, right as they're pulling up, the excitement and the anticipation of actually being that close to their bucket list item is riveting.
I think that's an excellent word you just used there, Jen, bucket list. Because the statue and Ellis, although it's one package, we as guides always think of it together. The statue, visit to the statue is definitely a bucket list, whereas I feel Ellis Island as a companion is like a pilgrimage.
That's good.
And what people are hoping to experience, the statue is something, I don't mean to minimize it, but the statue is something definitely that they have to see, whereas with Ellis Island, it's like they're going to pay homage to their ancestors personally.
Yeah.
So my favorite is actually Ellis Island.
Yeah.
I think for me, one of my favorite things is going through the actual history of the statue. And, there's so much more than we know that I didn't know until I first went out there and started learning about her history. And I love I love the discussions that my guests and I end up having once we go through that history. And as they're starting to learn all this, I think that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah. I think I have two favorites. The first being the more sentimental one, the Wall of Honor. because all of part of it is personal because I have names on the Wall of Honor that came through Ellis Island. But for those who aren't familiar, the Wall of Honor is this relatively new metal structure on Ellis Island, covered in the names of the ancestors of the donors who came to America through Ellis Island. And all of those donors are the ones who gave the money that eventually restored Ellis Island into being a visitable museum and not just a place where teenagers from nearby New Jersey were able to hide and drink a lot of beer without their parents looking, and honestly, good for them. For real. So I think being able to tell people about that, not just to say, hey, this is something that maybe some of your ancestors went through. This is something that 40% of Americans have relatives that went through, and have that be an abstract, distant past. To be able to look at this and go, these are people who came through here, these are their names, and their relatives are alive and happy here and comfortable enough to give that money. They had this opportunity here that they didn't have back home. And the fact that all the names are on this wall and their great grandchildren were able to afford to donate hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to this fund means that they got what they wanted when they came here. They were able to achieve this impossible thing. And I think that really gets me, and I know that gets the guests too. But another thing that I love is when we get off the boat at Liberty Island, formerly Bedloe's Island, we get off the boat and I welcome everybody to New Jersey. And then I welcome them back to New York as soon as we're off the docks and on the island. And I explain the history of, as all of us do, about how the islands, were in the harbor and the way things got split up in the 1660s and how those borders reshuffled when we became states instead of colonies. And as soon as they're in on the New York, New Jersey rivalry, especially the Long Island, New Jersey rivalry.
New Jersey here.
And Long Island, as soon as they're in on that sibling rivalry, we feel like a family. And I don't know, there aren't many other tours that I give where there's that moment where okay, now we're all going to be best friends. And I really love that, personally.
That's cool.
Yeah. Are there any guests that you guys have had that really stick out in your mind? Either for being fantastically wonderful human beings or being so bizarre that we need to pray about them while still saying nice?
I have to. Oh, go ahead, Alison. Go ahead. You go.
Let's see. Let's start with two of my favorites that I'll never forget. I had one gal who throughout the whole tour, I couldn't tell if she was enjoying it, what was wrong. And she finally, in a very quiet moment with me as we're leaving the statue and heading to Ellis Island, says, this is just so special to me. My husband and I had to flee Eastern Europe. We were political refugees in Germany, and it took us many years to get here. But, this is our new home, and this has just been so amazing to me. And she just starts crying. You're like, oh my gosh. Especially for me, my family, so much of my family's been in the United States since before the Civil War. So we just don't have those stories. Another woman, I'm literally in the middle of talking to my group at Ellis Island, and she just starts talking. And she just couldn't hold it in anymore. She wanted to tell our group that she was there with her adult daughter. And they, in the 1990s, during those few days when Cuba opened up and a whole bunch of people were literally just jumping on rafts, she was like, my daughter was a baby. I didn't know if we were going to survive, but I just jumped on a raft, and she got to grow up in the United States. And the whole group is like, oh my gosh.
Oh my God, I'm gonna cry.
One more story, and then I'm gonna pass the torch. Another guest, his family came from the country of Georgia. And I'm sure many of us, when we start our tour, we start at Castle Clinton, we talk about the early history of immigration in New York and how people for many decades first came through Castle Clinton. And so I've already talked about this, and we're on Ellis Island, and he says, well, how do I find my relatives' names? They passed through Ellis Island in the 1860s. And I said, no, they didn't. And he said, then why the hell am I here? Excuse my language.
What are you doing?
To learn that they didn't come through Ellis Island.
Oh, you had to be the bearer of bad news.
Yeah, he wasn't so keen on that, but we tried to figure out if maybe they came through Castle Clinton.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Go for it.
Go for it.
I had a guest on Ellis Island who had actually been there as a child right before it closed in the 50s,
Wow.
which was amazing. The backstory was her parents were Polish resistance fighters during World War II,
Mhm.
and they both went to concentration camps, but somehow met and then had her, and then after the war moved to the United States. So it was amazing to see it through her eyes. Now, she was a little kid when she came, but she's like looking at things and saying, yeah, that was where, and that was where. So I just kind of, I had to just kind of, you know, back up and go ahead. She was the tour that day. So, that was very, very special to get that, personal connection. And after that, I never miss a chance to ask anybody if they have an actual personal story, whether it's theirs or their grandmother's or great grandmother's, what have you.
Eddie,
So that's part of the reason I love Ellis Island.
To piggyback off of that really cool story. I mean, it's just touching.
Thanks, Jen.
I think it was a year ago in the fall, I had this elderly couple, and we were inside Ellis Island, and we were about to walk down the stairs of separation, and they started to both well with tears. And we got down from the stairs of separation right by the kissing post, and they started to share their story with the entire group, that they were separate. They were not married at this time because one was 2 years old and one was 4 years old, and they both came from Ireland, and they came over, and when they saw the Statue of Liberty, it fueled them with this revelation that they've made it. At least the 4-year-old had that space, and he remembered it. And now, all of these years later, they're married. And I believe one came in 1952, the other one came in 1954. In America, they got married. And this is their first time stepping back onto Ellis Island since they were little kiddos. And when they walked down the stairs of separation, they remembered this nostalgic moment, and they held hands as they came down the right side, which takes you through a passageway to New York City, or to the boat to get to New York.
That is great.
That's so sweet.
It was endearing.
Oh my God, that's fantastic, Jen.
Much.
I mostly have horror stories.
Ditto. I got a question mine, and I'll try to later. I do have one non-horror story. I had these lovely women from Norway who were coming to visit their second cousins. And when we were coming down the separation stairs, they started laughing because their grandmother was in her teens, early 20s when she came through Ellis Island with her sister and her mother. And she said that so grandma passed out in the waiting room. They took her to the hospital to check her out, and they did a routine pregnancy test just to make sure that nothing they gave her was, gonna mess with anything developing. And it turns out she was pregnant. She didn't know. That's how she found out she was pregnant. Now, she had a boyfriend back in Norway, and the plan was that she and her sister and her mom were going to come here, have their life, and then a year later, they would have saved up enough money to bring the boyfriend here, and they would get married in the States. But the people at Ellis Island would not let her through as an unmarried pregnant woman. So she had to go home. And her mother and her sister could not afford to follow her. So she went back to Norway. She moved in with her boyfriend. They got married. They had the kids. And then the kids had the kids. And now the grandkids were coming back to Ellis Island to see where grandma passed out and screwed it up for the whole family. It was wild. And then they were coming to visit their second cousins who had made it through because their grandma's sister had come to America and had stayed along with her mother. It was wild. It was such an event.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
I think that's what's so good about Ellis Island is that we learn all these very intimate stories that really pass through the lineage of people. As Statue of Liberty, we see stories of people maybe when they were younger, seeing the statue coming back as adults, or mostly bucket list items. But Ellis Island is where you really get to connect intimately to these really cherished moments that are stored in the soul.
Yeah.
Jimmy, can you share? Oh, sorry, Jen.
I had one guest that I'm still really close buddies with. We text all the time. And we were on the ship going to the Statue of Liberty, the cruises, and she had a bracelet on. She had a whole bunch of bracelets on that in security. She had to take every single bracelet off. And I was making a bracelet for QVC. And so I became buddies with her, and she ended up following along. It's been 1.5 years now on this journey. And now the bracelet that we've been developing is going to come out on QVC this coming August. And Lori, who I met on the tour, has become one of those closest friends that have been along this journey. And so I think it's also neat. It's like when you develop those friendships that last forever. Like Jimmy, on your Instagram, you've got so many friends that you've made that follow along all of your funny stand-up comedian journeys with the chicken. And it's so fun to see them comment because you develop a little community with everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't put as much, I feel, effort into social media as I could have in the past. But since, quarantine and isolation, and not having, or rather, rather the opposite, having so much free time, and I, don't know what to do with myself sometimes. I've been trying now to expand my networks the same way, and it's one thing I've really missed aside from being able to tour is being able to do comedy the same way, feeling stifled. So I've started my hand at memeing now. I've begun to meme.
Oh, good.
It's the next step in comedy, I suppose.
The world isn't ready.
I don't know if I'm ready.
The world is not ready for the chicken.
Okay, so Jimmy, do you have we're ready to jump in with a guest story? Yes?
Oh, cool.
No.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No. I thought you said a guest was asking a question. I'm sorry,
No,
Jimmy.
yet.
Oh, no,
I'm
I
looking
guess
forward.
story. I feel as though I always think of a lot. I'm trying to think of what would be like we're talking about favorite ones, heartwarming.
Let's go with favorite because we're gonna get into the hijinks later.
Okay.
That is slated. If you have a favorite.
I would say that it's one of these things that's so funny now that I've been touring so long that I will feel like I'll have tour tropes that happen that when they happen, I'm like just excited about these moments of tourism that I can catch. And I've been able to catch these moments like at different times. And one of those things that I feel I've had happen now dozens of times, but it's always one of my favorites is when you have and I'm sure you might have all had it on your tour, the incredibly excited like little kid, the kid whom is just beaming with exuberance, and they're like so excited to be here, and maybe it's the first time they've gotten a chance to really take a stab at like learning while they're out on a holiday at the same time, and maybe they're the one that's driving the ship, and you can see that the other one wants to be there. And then sometimes you look and you're walking and you're talking to the kid and you look and like, where are the parents? And they're like at the back of the group and they're like, oh my goodness. This maniac.
Also, shout out to all of the kids who have done that on my tours, who are now teenagers, who are watching this, because I know you're there. Hello. Hi, Reese. I hope your doctor visit went well.
But it's exactly, it's that sort of enthusiasm that is so important, You
Yeah.
have to always keep learning, and that's one thing that I know, especially after being touring for this long, is I feel like I'm just beginning to learn. There's only more to see and to know. And, I can never say that I've learned and figured out New York City. You got to be out of your mind.
Right. Yeah.
I love when
That's
I get
the fun
questions about like from that one kid on the tour who's obsessed with Teddy Roosevelt and wants to hear everything about the American
my
Committee.
God.
My favorite moment, because I never get to dig into that on the tour. We don't really have time. But
Right.
there's this
Right.
the one Teddy nerd.
Always the one kid.
Always the one Teddy nerd. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you have the same idea happen where have you ever gotten on a tour and there's someone that comes and they sort of accuse you of not being a tour guide within the first 5 minutes of meeting you,
And you got to win them over.
next time, and it's 8 a.m. and they're asking you questions that are off book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're like, all right, buddy, let's batter up, let's go.
Yes. I had somebody asked me once, what was the font name of the New York Times or something like that?
Oh boy.
Like testing me out right out the gate. Now, something is one of the things I learned right after that, and I couldn't tell you now.
Yeah. Oh, honey, don't worry. My dad works for the Times, and he.
I'm not worried. I'm not worried. If it comes up, yeah. But that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
I had just one kind of funny story about Ellis Island that a guest told me about her great grandmother or something that she had told her. She was there at Ellis Island. They were from Italy, and they were sitting on a bench waiting for the next step. And they noticed across the hall there was this door to this room that kept opening, and people would go in and then it would close, and it kept happening. And the great grandmother got concerned, the family got concerned, because these people would go into this room and then disappear and never be seen again, and then it would repeat all over again. And it turned out it was the first time she was seeing an elevator.
Oh.
But that always kind of, I think of that. These people came to Ellis Island, they'd never seen this kind of technology, whether it be that, or even the medical practices. But I just, I think of that every time I'm in an elevator.
Speaking of tech on these islands, not on my list of questions, but I'm fascinated to know if eventually the statue will reopen and people will return. What are the questions that you guys get that you're baffled by, where you're like, oh my goodness, how do people not know that? So that anyone who's watching, who's planning a trip, who might not know that, I'm wondering what should they know moving forward that they don't know? I know mine is there's no elevator to the Crown.
Right.
Yeah, that's my big one. There's no elevator to the Crown, and you have to go through security twice.
Can I?
Yeah. Sure.
My favorite is we get to Ellis Islands, I do my thing, right? And, the tour is over, and they say, where's the subway? Or where do I get a cab here?
Mm-hmm.
You're on an island. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I was once piggybacking on that. I was once on the boat, the ferry going from Statue to Ellis Island, and there's this huge school group, and I hear one of the chaperones on the phone saying, "Oh, we'll just have the bus pick us up at Ellis Island," and I had to.
Oh no! Oh
like,
no!
What are you talking about? I was like, "How soon do you need to be back in New York? Because you might need to just stay on this ferry."
Yeah, right.
And on that note, just for those who are going to be coming to New York and want to visit the statue, one thing that a lot of my guests are always surprised by is how long it takes. They seem to think that it's one of those monuments, you just walk right up, there you are, hello. And I get that. They're not from here. They have no way of understanding that. And people always seem so shocked that it's going to take a few hours. People always say to me, is this tour really 4 hours long? Like, how does it take so much time? And I'm like, we have to go through security. and we have to take a ferry. Sometimes we have to wait for the ferry. There's only so much we can do to control that schedule, you know. And if the schedule gets off, you know, it's no one's fault. It's just, it happens. Once you're on the island, there's stuff to see. There's potentially more security. Then you have to wait for another ferry, and it just adds up. So people, I would really like people to be aware of that. You know, don't think that you can do this in an hour or two if you have somewhere else to be.
And still catch a Broadway show at 2 o'clock. Yeah.
Oh, that happens all the time. People who are like, I have a 2 p.m. matinee. And I'm like,
no, you don't.
I've literally told people who really wanted to go to Ellis Island, I was like, if you want to make it to your show, you're not going to Ellis Island today. You have to make a choice. They're like, no, we think we can do it. And I was like, no, you can't.
No, because
I'm literally not going to allow you to get off of
your
this
tour ends
ferry.
at 1:30. That means you're catching the 1:40 boat at the earliest. The 1:40 boat isn't going to leave until 1:45. It'll arrive at 2 o'clock at Battery Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're lucky.
And you need to get at least a slice of pizza before going to your 2 to 3 hour show.
I mean, people, they assume because it's New York, everything is the New York minute, everything is convenient. You know, you just got to tell them, I go, it's the equivalent of going up into the mountains. We got to go up into the mountains. We got to go out to the island. Like, we're going to get out there, and then we're going to be out there. And it's not going to be a place you can run from.
You're going to cross state borders at least 4 times in the process. It's complicated.
And once we get out there, so many people are like, oh, this is so interesting. I don't want to get back on the ferry right now. And I'm like, well, can
you get a refund on that ticket? Yeah.
I think it's also times of catching the boat when people figure out, okay, this is the time. Now we as guides, we buffer in that delay time or someone running late time. But on Ellis, when they're on their own to come back, if they go on the schedule, they forget, even though we tell them that the line is very, very, very long. And so people show up on the time the boat's to leave to enter into a line to then get cut off and then experience frustration. And when you're in the summer and the hot heat is hitting you, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the, I would say
and
that.
You would know, you have saved people from heat exhaustion before on that line.
So
want to tell that story? Please do.
So last year when we had that psychotic heat wave that we were in extraordinary humidity and extreme temperatures, my husband said, Jen, you need to pack ice bags. And I was like, what? So he literally filled me up with a backpack. Like I felt like I was going off to kindergarten. And we took our washcloths that we have and we filled it with water and we froze them. And then we put our ice packs all in this backpack. And then I had extra water. So when the heat wave was hitting, I had people going down in line, literally fainting. And I grabbed those ice packs and those wash rags and they stuck them on the back of their neck, on their head. And we started to rejuvenate people to be able to get onto the boat. And that was, I think we did that 2 days in a row. And I remember getting done with that tour being like, oh my gosh, I feel like I was a medic more than a guide, just trying to save people's health and their sanity. And when we started, we shared, you need to be drinking water because this is what we're going into from a precautionary area. Well, it was really, I think that was probably some of the hardest guiding that I ever had because of the safety of them.
Yeah, it was, ever so often, like you say, it turns into battling the elements to the point of survival. And people are like, but I gotta get a picture.
Yeah. Do you guys remember that one day we had where it was so foggy we could not see the statue when we were standing next to it?
Yeah, I was working that day.
I was so sure the boats were not going to be able to dock that day. It took 20 minutes for the Lady Liberty to dock at Liberty Island.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh yeah, because without that sight line.
We sort of crashed into the dock that day.
Yeah.
When we did go out, when we finally got out there, it was like an hour and a half later than we would have been normally or something to that effect. And I remember that I said, you know what, let's go out in front and we'll get a picture with a silhouette. You really couldn't see anything, but there was definitely some light being shaded away. So I was like, that's something, isn't it? And as we got to the spot where the Statue of Liberty was right in the moment, like the clouds parted and everyone got their photographs,
That's cool.
And a moment later,
Wow.
yeah, and then as soon as I was walking away, the clouds shut again. And when the clouds shut again, I saw another guide from our company come by, Christina, and she's like, "No, there's no picture."
Poor Christina. She always gets the short end of the stick in these situations.
Yes. Oh, look,
The
they like
buzzing
that.
into the
So yeah,
lollipop.
I collected some pictures for reference, and these are ones that we took that day.
Yeah,
Those
that's
are
wild.
beautiful.
Aren't they
Absolutely.
though? Oh, it would have been breathtaking if it wasn't for, our safety being a concern.
Right. Those are majestic. Holy
Yeah.
smokes, those are really cool
Right.
photos.
But you
Thinking
could have
back-
sliced a chunk out of the air with a butter knife. It was
Yeah.
that thick.
Wow, I wasn't there that day. One of the days when it was raining, my brother's family came up, and it wasn't raining down, it was raining sideways. And everybody wanted to go out to the front of the statue on top of the pedestal. They really wanted to do that. And so we came on out, and everyone's fighting the elements, dealing with the rain. And so I had the stupid courageousness to be able to start citing the Emma Lazarus poem. And I was looking, and then I turned around, and my entire family, including my husband, because he came on that tour with my brother, was literally off on the side of the pedestal, guarding themselves from the elements. And I was like, you guys are the ones that wanted to come out here. And they were the ones that were chicken, and they didn't even take a photo. They just escaped back on, and all the other guests that were with us, they were excited. And so we got their pictures done and got it done. But when the elements hit, it just makes the experience very unenjoyable. And our job as a guide to try to make it memorable in a positive way.
But
Well,
can I
you
say,
say it's the immigrant experience right there.
It is an immigrant, and that's what we say. You're like, back in 1920, this is what the immigrants faced.
True immersion.
Exactly.
But Alison,
exactly.
yes.
It's
no, I was just gonna
totally
say,
interactive.
people talking about inclement weather. I know a lot of people don't go because it's snowing or this or that, but I just want to say, sometimes when it's snowing, yeah, maybe we don't enjoy that, but it is crazy beautiful at the statue, and Ellis
Oh, yeah.
Island looks like Narnia. And I've had
Yeah.
so many people cancel, and then the few that put up with it are like, oh my gosh, like, so it's snowing, it's cold, but this is actually really beautiful. I'm so glad I'm
Right?
here right now and put up with this.
And even less pretty inclement weather. I've got a group that comes back. Actually, this is the first May in 3 years. They do 2 tours a year with myself, and Daniel Marmion was involved on the first one. And then it was a small enough group that it was just me. And then Nathan graciously jumped in to help with a bunch of them. And Kevin Lawrence did as well. With my friend Jim from California. Jim, if you're seeing this, hello. I miss you. It's weird not giving you a tour of the Statue of Liberty this month. But they came back like twice a year, every year. And Jim sent his first group with me on the rainiest day I'd been at the Statue of Liberty to date. And I felt so bad because these kids were from San Diego. They don't know rain. They'd never seen rain before, and it's raining buckets, but they were so happy because they got native weather. And I think there's some charm in that. Yeah.
Yeah, except when you have to work that day.
Yeah, except when you have to work that day.
Yeah, question.
Yeah. Do any of you guys own rain boots? I feel like I'm the only tour guide that owns rain boots.
I do.
Good. Good.
I used to have magnificent rain gear years ago when I would work on the double deckers, and it all wore out.
Mm.
I just want to put a plug in here for anybody who's working in an industry like ours or working in our industry. And I promise this is not endorsed in any way. They are not sponsoring this content, but Crocs are the best rain boots I've ever had. There's no seams, so there's no fracture points for them to split on. Justina, who used to be a tour guide with us and now teaches English, I think, lovely human being if you haven't met her. She's the one who gave me the tip off. Crocs rain boots. They're the one shoes that they make out of plastic that don't have holes in them, and they're fantastic.
That's great.
You really do seem like a commercial.
You know what? Maybe they'll give me an endorsement deal after this, but I say this from my own heart with no endorsement involved.
I think what's hard for tourists is that they are packing one suitcase and they can't pack for every single kind of weather.
Yeah.
But one thing that I really try to tell people is if you have like a pair of boots or something, pack that, because when it's raining, that's so much better than sneakers.
Yeah, or pack your toiletries and your socks in your rain boots if you're worried about inclement weather.
Yeah, and don't worry about fashion. If it's raining, if it's cold, wear what you need to. Wear a poncho. Put on a stupid heavy puffy coat. I don't care if it's ugly. New Yorkers don't care.
Yeah, New Yorkers aren't anywhere near as fashionable as people think we are.
And when it's Arctic weather, like -5 degrees, do not wear a mini skirt and high heels to the Statue of Liberty. Even how cool you think you look, you will be cool to the frozen bone.
Yeah, the entire ground level that you're walking on top of the pedestal, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, who hasn't been yet and is planning a trip, is really broken slate and very worn away mortar and grouting between like weirdly oriented Belgian plaques. Full of tripping hazards, so full of tripping hazards. If you don't feel like you can walk confidently on maybe a gravel path in the shoes that you plan on wearing to the Statue of Liberty, plan on different shoes. I have seen some people really masterfully do my tour in 6-inch heels, but I've also seen some people nearly break their nose in flip-flops. So make sure you are confident.
Can I jump in on that? Yeah, you talked about how it's uneven ground, and we were talking about some of our most memorable guests recently. I had a guy who was on the tour with his wife and his 3 young kids, and he had one leg, and he had his crutches. And we're standing in the first security line, and they tried to push my whole group through to be like, sir, let's help you out. And he didn't want anyone to help him out. He wanted to be able to do this on his own. And I was just so amazed seeing the way that he was really trying, he didn't want special treatment. And obviously in the end, we gave him some. We had to wait for like 40 minutes because there was a problem with an elevator. And my whole group was like, we're just going to wait. It's fine.
Oh, I love those moments.
Good. I love those people.
Yeah, my entire group. We were like, it's fine if we miss the ferry. And I just thought that was really, really cool of all of them. Like they understood that he didn't want special treatment, but at the same time, I mean, it's not his fault that he had one leg. And it's a lot more physical. He said to me at the end of the tour, he's like, I did not expect this to be as hard as it was. You're on your feet more.
Yeah, and we often lose sight of that ourselves because I don't know about you guys, but this is definitely the least walking per hour that I do on any tour. Is taken care of by boats. So, I might on a work day at the Statue of Liberty in Ellis Island, during my work day, I might rack up 7,000 steps, but the same amount of time spent on another tour would be twice that. So it can be easy for us to lose sight of that as well.
Yeah, I actually, of all things, this year sprained my ankle. It was last year sprained my ankle, and then did a tour on crutches, and it was murder.
Oh, good. The stories you tell me, Jimmy, I don't know how you put up with this nonsense. Can you tell the knife story? I really want the folks at home to know the knife story.
It's a classic, of course. It's funny how when you were like, tell the knife story, I was like, which one?
Okay, so a preface for the crowd. A great pro tip that people don't think of: don't bring your knives.
Oh my gosh!
Please, I can't tell you how many knives I've had to hide and mulch. It's not fun. Yes, knife story. Dazzle us. I'm so excited.
So, one of my favorites was that we were in security, and I see them. There's a very large group of kids ahead of us, which, as any tour guide knows, can be really chaotic when you're in the security building, especially. The kids don't understand the procedure, and there's usually not enough chaperones to deal with them, so things are pretty much hog wild. And there's a guy just ahead of us, and his bag beeps, and they pull him aside, and out of his bag, they pull out, it was a knife that was so large, for one, it looked like it could have been in Lord of the Rings, or it could have looked like the knife that, they used in, like, Game of Thrones, like that little assassin's blade. but it actually was a trench knife, and it had, a trench knife had finger holsters in it. And they're like, "What is this?" And he says, "Oh, I use it for self-defense."
Sure.
And they're like, "From what?" And they were about to take him into custody. And because, if you have a smaller knife, they'll just confiscate it. But this was like a lethal weapon, so they were going to arrest him. And he goes, "Oh, you can't. And they say, "Why not?" And he goes, "Well, I'm the administrator, and these are all my children." And he pointed at 100 or so children that were around. He goes, "I'm in charge, and this is my trip. And those are all my kids." And they brought over other, people to corroborate that. And they took the knife from him, and they let him walk, and they let him go with the group, because they couldn't fathom, I guess, the idea of letting the kids loose.
I cannot imagine. How old were these kids, do you think?
They were middle school, probably.
Okay, so like 11, 12-year-olds. Was he planning on slicing through a Times Square Elmo in front of a giant group of 12 and 13-year-olds? What was the goal there?
It's like I say, it was such a comically large knife, and it had grooves and bends in it. It didn't look like anything. I just don't know where you would find something like this.
On the islands to cut pineapples.
Exactly. Well, that's the same thing. I had a woman, more recently, where she pulls this knife out when I mentioned, you can't have knives, and she pulled out a knife just about yay long, but it was like it was something you use in the kitchen, like a kitchen knife, but a thin kitchen knife. And I go, "Why do you have that?" And she goes, "To cut fruit with for lunch." I'm like, "Why don't you cut it at home before you leave?" And she goes, "Oh, I never leave home without it."
I guess she's used to that. I had a woman once, this grandma from San Diego, huge family, the kids, the grandkids, all there. And at security at the statue, she got stopped and they pulled everything out of her bag. And she's so embarrassed. She's like, "I don't know what's going on. I swear I don't have anything in there." And they pulled out a pair of nail scissors. And she was like, "Oh my gosh. It's because, the kids don't have warm clothes. It was a winter tour." She was like, "I was afraid that all the kids would show up still wearing the tags. So I threw nail scissors in my bag." And they literally pulled everything out of her bag because of this tiny pair of nail scissors. So again, anyone who's visiting, just know, leave your knives, leave your scissors at home.
At home.
Or in the hotel room.
Yeah, metal nail files, also not a good idea. Won't make it through the second security check. Learned that the hard way. Also, leave your food processors at home. Similar to the fruit knife story, I had one woman who she's not a fan of mine, because she asked me about baby food, if that could she could bring baby food into the pedestal, back when we still had the old museum. And I was like, "Yeah, you can bring formula." She did not have formula. She was ahead of me in security. I'm always the last one through with my groups because I want to make sure that everything is okay at the lockers. She gets sent back and she's furious with me because they won't let her in with her baby food. Her baby food was 5 bananas and a food processor to mash the bananas with.
Oh, lovely. Yes.
I'm wondering where she was going to plug it in.
I totally understand that sentiment. I want fresh food for my kid, but
yeah.
It's just security just has to be super high at the statue.
Yeah.
Also, just to note, no Sharpies. I've had guests have Sharpies taken away and they get very angry. But I don't know if anyone else was there that 4th of July when someone started graffiti with the Sharpie. And like my whole group watched this guy get arrested, get searched, the whole everything, because we were waiting for the ferry.
That was the same day as the climber, right?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there too.
I got home from work at about 3 p.m. I was going back to Long Island. I hadn't quite moved to Manhattan yet. And my mother was very confused as to why I was home. She was expecting me to still be on the island. Ben, who wasn't able to make it today, and I hope that he and his are doing better, has a great story because he was there. he was on the island giving our afternoon statue and Ellis tour. And he was getting his group ready to go to Ellis Island. They were about to leave Liberty Island and go to Ellis. If they had been one boat earlier, they would have made it. But because he was gathering his group at 6:20 at a 3:25, which is when that woman started climbing, they immediately shut down all boat service and then shut down the island and reconfigured the boats to bring people, all of them, back to where they had come from, whether that was Liberty State Park or Battery Park. So instead of taking a 10-minute ferry to Ellis Island and giving the rest of his tour there, he was stuck for hours on the docks as they were evacuating the island. It was wild. Oh, please don't climb the statue. That's another great piece of advice for everybody. Don't climb.
Yeah, so please don't climb the statue.
Don't climb the statue.
It turns into a whole thing.
Sarah,
That's part of the
Sarah, do you have any other questions for us?
I do, actually. We've kind of dug into a whole bunch of them. The strangest thing you've seen in security, strangest guest interaction you've ever had, most eventful workday. But I have two that I really want to touch on to wrap up because we're coming to the end of our time. And I want to start with, what do you miss most right now about working at the Statue of Liberty in Ellis Island?
The people.
the
I
people.
miss
Yeah.
people from all over the world. I miss having conversations with them because all of us have a different experience about it depending on where we come from. And I look forward to seeing people again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I miss the boat boys. I miss
What'd you
the
say?
Statue Cruises gang very much.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. I feel like they're the co-workers, just like you guys are. You know.
Yeah.
And the guys in the gift shop, the
Al?
the Rangers.
Who's
miss
that
Al.
one guy in the dining hall who was always so super, super happy?
I was just thinking about
I know, isn't he amazing?
Bermuda.
Yeah.
That's Leo. That's Red. That's Red. That's his name. He's always like, yo, Long Island in the house.
Yes,
He's the nicest man. He's tried to set me up with his nephew 3 times, and I know I'm not the only one that he's tried to do this with. The nicest man.
He is.
Yeah.
He'll always give you extra sauerkraut on your hot dog. He's like the nicest guy. He's been known to even like slip people lemon wedges that they're not supposed to give out if you want to put lemon in your soup. Like, nicest guy. And I hope this doesn't get him in trouble. Red is a good man. I want you to hear that,
No.
Evelyn Hill.
One time I was waiting for a chicken sandwich and he gave me an onion ring just while I was waiting as an appetizer.
To tide you over.
Yeah.
He's
Oh,
actually
he's such a good
from,
man.
this neighborhood that I live in now, Bushwick. And every time I come around, he doesn't live here anymore. I think he lives in Jersey now. But he's always asking. He's like, "How's the old neighborhood?" Because I live like streets away from where he was born and stuff like that. So I'm like, it's changed quite a bit, my friend. But we're trying to hold it down for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. To Sarah, to answer your question, I think I'm with Alison. I definitely miss the people and all of their journeys of where they are coming from all across the country, all across the globe. And it's just fascinating to be able to just hang out and learn stories of what their world is. I always have so much fun at the end of a tour. I'm like, that was the best. But for me, it takes an hour and a half to get home. And by the time I'm home, I'm like,
Girl, I feel that. I remember that Long Island commute. I am with you. I was asleep by Manhasset.
I miss of all things working. You know, I just miss. I like grinding. I like being out there and getting it done. And like I say, I'm one of those people where I never was truly satisfied working in a context where I wasn't like helping people or entertaining people or giving them something back that they could cherish and But I still, at the end of the day, like it's difficult to be stagnant. When you're trying to figure out like new avenues and new pathways to entertain or to things like that. It's like, oh great, I got to reinvent the wheel now. Okay.
Yeah.
Which, Sarah,
Yeah.
it's really cool for you to come up with this idea to be able to share about the statue stories with everyone.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
you know
fantastic.
what? This is the thing I miss the most. I miss boat chats and tour guide table and
Lunch chats. Yeah.
lunch chats. You know, I absolutely love my guests. That's a close second, but I mean, I'm with you, Jimmy. I'm all about the grind, and you know, some of the closest friendships that I had pre-COVID, ones that I am finding ways to extend now, are with the people we know from work, with Al, the inspector, and Glenn, and Louis, and Lee, Ranger Lee, who,
Oh,
yeah,
love Ranger Lee.
and Anthony, and all of the Rangers, and Jose, and all the guys on the boats. This is the one tour, I think, where you really have a work family. You have a water cooler opportunity. You get to know people that you're going to see every day, and you get to share these experiences with them over and over again. And there are other tours that have really content that is a little bit closer and nearer and dearer to my heart. I show people where my great-great-grandpa got shot on Slick, Soho, Little Italy, Chinatown. So, but the community aspect of this, not only having that community, but being able to share it with my guests. So like half of them follow Jose now on Instagram. That is really special. And that's something I'm very much looking forward to getting back as soon as it's safe to do so.
Yeah.
I
think, yes, go for it.
No, I was just going to say, everyone's talking about, our guests and the people we meet, our fellow tour guide friends, the people we meet on the boat, this and that. Is anyone else? I'm not a morning person, and I try so hard to be friendly in the morning, but I show up to work and I am super grouchy half the time, doing my best. And I can tell you within an hour, I'm like, okay, I'm cool. I'm good to go. Like, it's just such a great group. There's always awesome people that no matter how you feel are going to bring you out of that funk. And I think that's pretty cool. And I love that we have that, and that's what we're sharing with all these people who come to visit New York City.
Yeah. And on that topic, I want to get to our the last big question. And this is a biggie. If you could tell your guests on the Statue and Ellis tour one thing that you really want them to know right now, whether it's about New York or about the Statue and Ellis crew or about yourself, what is it that you would want former and prospective guests to know?
New York City will always bounce back, and we are
absolutely
desperately waiting for you to be able to come back here.
Yeah. We'll be here. We'll be here.
There's this whole thing about how New Yorkers are rude and this and that. We're just busy. We actually really love having you here. We look forward to you coming.
Yeah. And what the news is showing about New York City right now during this pandemic is really skewed. I was in Georgia on quarantine, shut down in the state of Georgia on a farm, and everything that we were seeing on the news, it looked like it was scary. And then when my husband and I came back up a month ago, we drove through and we're like, this is not what we're seeing. And it's not, so what you're seeing on the news is really skewed. New York is gonna, just like Alison said, everything's gonna bounce back, just like Eddie said. We're waiting for you, so we want you to be able to come back.
You are. And I
and with the Statue of Liberty, I love what she stands for: liberty, enlightening the world. Her crown represents those 7 continents, those seas, welcoming everyone. So wherever you're at right now in the world, she stands for you, for us to be unified together as soon as everything gets back to normal.
Oh, I love that.
Cue inspirational music.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like this. New York City has been through worse, and there'll be worse that we'll get through.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
New York. We're going to still be here. We're going to be stronger. This is just another challenge and another, obstacle that we have to overcome. But again, we're going to come together as a community, and we're going to beat it. And again, we hope to see you all here. what we do.
Yeah. And I think speaking to all of that, both the very inspirational take that Jen always has, and by the way, I am so glad that you were able to turn your personality into a brand, because guys, she's always like this. And it works really well as a brand for her too, coincidentally. And also the, no nonsense New York Jimmy. To build off of both of those, New York really has been through so much, and we're still here. I have been watching a lot from this not tour related channel called Ask a Mortician, which is grim. And if you're not into grim things, don't do it. But her programming lately has been very much about, caring for the ill and caring for the deceased, and how we have an established pattern of doing things that work. So when people got real freaked out about Hart Island, that's the system working. And thankfully, we did not have to use it. And I think that the thing that I want New York or anyone outside of New York to know is that, okay, so maybe it looks scary. And maybe the people who are talking about it on the national news are saying it's scary. But New Yorkers are not easily scared. And if we are, we know how to find support and strength in each other. It's what we do best. We've been doing it since before every single one of us was alive and before, our ages combined. So I think that what I'm trying to say is not only that we'll be ready for you when you're ready to come here, but what I close all of my tours with, New York is the most diverse place on earth for a reason. No matter who you are, no matter your circumstances, New York welcomes you. You are always welcome in New York. And for my part, I have a lot of faith in the governing officials of our city and our state, and in their ability to reopen safely, so that when you do come back on whatever timeline that is, that we're going to be able to take care of you here.
Yeah,
we might have extra hand sanitizer.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, and that's the other. We have plenty of masks, plenty of sanitizer.
Oh yeah.
Plenty of gloves.
And some of the best hospitals in the country.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, yeah. So
you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, I know that our city and our state won't reopen until people who have a lot more expertise in public health than us say that we should. And so anyone who's planning a trip, don't be worried. If Cuomo and de Blasio say that you're good to go, then we look forward to having you here.
That's well said.
Well said, yes.
While Lady Liberty will be there to, I don't know, I was going to say something brilliant and then it just didn't come.
I don't know who will be
You're
lighting her,
already
but
dead.
somebody
You're
will.
Already dead.
Wasn't Louis supposed to retire by now? Louis was supposed to retire
say?
this month. Louis, the keeper of the flame, was supposed to retire this month.
Really?
I don't know if they've moved that forward at all and decided that he's going to work his last couple of months after the furloughing. I'm not sure how that's working out, but whether it's him or somebody else, there's still somebody who's going to be lighting her.
Can I just say one of my favorite Louis moments, and I know I need to wrap up, but so Louis is the caretaker of the statue. And there was one day with my group, he was passing by, I asked him if he could stop and say some words. And he was talking about how he just had to change a light bulb. So the statue torch, it's lit from underneath. He's explaining how he has to climb up all of these stairs and this ladder with these huge light bulbs. And I just think that's so amazing that, there's someone who does that to make sure that she is still lit every single day.
Yeah. And for anyone who doesn't know, that is Louis. He is the one in the park ranger outfit with a couple of my guests from about a year ago. He is the nicest man on earth.
That's such a good picture. I love it.
Oh, and the whole of them, they were so cute. I think these are 3 friends, and all of them cried a little bit after Louis told them what he did for a living. It was really cute. There's always time for a Louis moment. Always.
There's always time for a Louis moment.
One thing I think is amazing is, Lady Liberty has stood in the harbor since 1886. And of course, for a moment, I'm questioning myself because it's been so long since.
No, you're right.
You're good. You're good.
You're
But
good.
she has always been there to welcome whoever is sailing into the harbor since then. Always been there to say hello and welcome to New York City.
That's our story. We're sticking to it.
We are sticking to it, and I think it's about time that we wrap up for the folks at home. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this stream.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in after the fact to watch us on Facebook and YouTube. If you see any tour guides here that you recognize or that you liked the story enough that you want to throw a tip, the link is exp1.com/tips. That is exp1.com/tips. It's a great way to make sure that we can buy groceries if you feel so inclined. And thank you, everybody, for being a part of this. It was wonderful to see you all.
And thank you so much for even considering your generosity in that way. Like Sarah said, it helps us buy groceries
so much.
I have not been able to get out and tour it out.
I had been putting off buying eggs for so long.
Well, you know what? The chicken will thank you.
The chicken will thank you.
Chicken will be quite thankful. And like you say, we're out here, and we would love if we could work, but it's a struggle. So thank you so much. We really do appreciate that.
So thank you, everybody. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you all in person soon.